Right, we're on. We're starting to get our teeth into this new system, the less is more system. Low carb, high fat diet is the subject for this video, and I'd like to get into the science behind how we got to that low carb, high fat diets are a good thing. But what's more important is how did we get into this mess that we're in at the moment? Why is everybody obese? Why is everybody struggling with diabetes? Why is cancer on the increase and so on? So what is the history? Where did this all come from? Where did we start going so horribly wrong with what we teach our children and what we teach people what to eat and when to eat it? In the 70s, 1977, in fact, there was a chap called Ansel Keys. He was a very influential guy in America. And cardiac disease was on the rise. And they were wondering what is going on here? Why are we starting to die more and more of heart attacks? What's happening here? He drew on many autopsies that were done on people that had heart disease and found that the arteries of many of the cases had a cholesterol plaque on the inside, had a little fat deposit called cholesterol plaque on the inside of the artery. And that cholesterol, when it builds up too much, starts throwing off emboli, which is little bits that come off and then sort of go along, and then get stuck in the smaller part of the artery. As the arteries get smaller and smaller and smaller, and they get closer to the end organ, it blocks it, and of course, where it blocks it, the part dies. If this happens in a coronary artery, you die of heart disease. You die of a heart attack. If it happens in your brain, you got a stroke. So that's the basis of those things, is that this cholesterol plaque looked like it was throwing off little emboli, which is the truth. It throws off these embolus, and these emboli get stuck in the heart or in any of the end organs, and is why heart attacks happen. Now, that was a correct observation. Cholesterol plaque's not a good thing in the inside of an artery. Valid point. He made the direct assumption that this plaque was cholesterol, and he was right, it was cholesterol. So he said, well, it's obvious, lads. What we need to do is we need to consume less cholesterol. Simple. Cholesterol is the bad guy. Therefore, we need to consume less cholesterol in our diets. And if we do that, we'll be healthier and we'll live longer and we won't get heart attacks anymore. What a pleasure. Simple. Found the answer, done it. Very influential guy that eventually the FDA and all the associations, the Heart Association and so on, believed him and actually brought it into policy that a high carb, low fat diet is the way to go. We need to take most of our nutrients need to come from carbohydrates, and very little of it needs to come from proteins and fats, because the fats go and sit on the inside of your artery and kill you. Simple. What a pleasure. This is now, they found the answer, and we were just gonna change the world. What it did do is it did change the world. From that day onwards, obesity, pre-diabetes, and diabetes started increasing. It just got more and more and more. More and more people were fat, more and more people were unhealthy, and more people. So much so that we needed to eventually really throw a lot of money at the end stage of this disease and develop laser therapy for the eyes and cataract surgery, and we had to make better and better insulin and better medicines, more and more expensive treatments to try and curb this problem of an increase in obese, ill people. Now, just to explain to you how he got it a little bit wrong, is that there was a medical student that needed to do an experiment for one of his projects. And he decided to do a biologic experiment and take a flea. Now, this is with all due respect to the flea huggers. He took a flea, and fleas jump. So he clapped his hands, bang, the flea would jump. Clapped his hands again, the flea would jump. No, perfect. This is a good basis for a good experiment. Then what he did is very humanely and very subtly, he removed one of the legs of this flea, clapped his hands, and the flea would jump. he clapped his hands, the flea would jump. And then he severed the next leg, and then he severed another leg, and he severed another leg. And every time he severed a leg, the flea would still jump. Eventually, the flea was on his last leg. And he clapped, the flea would jump. Not as high, but he would jump. And then he humanely severed the last leg of this flea, put it down, and he clapped, and the flea didn't jump. And the flea didn't jump. And he said, well, there you go. It's very obvious. A flea hears with his legs. So you see, there's an example of perfectly correct observation, but a ludicrous and incorrect assumption as to why it is so. And Ansel Keys did a similar thing wrong. But we do it often in medicine, that we see something, we think it's that, but if we go into the science of it all, we find that it was a correct observation, but an incorrect assumption. This one just had far-reaching effect. So much so that we now have, in the Western society, in most of the dietary guidelines, in most of the diabetic guidelines, is a high-carb, low-fat diet. That you ask any dietitian, it's a high-carb, low-fat diet pyramid that we follow. And we sit with this massive obesity diabetic problem. So to take a step back, just to make you understand, there's 5 macronutrients. There's 5 macronutrients that we need. It's carbohydrates, we need proteins, we need fats, we need vitamins, and we need minerals. Now, vitamins and minerals we sort of get in by the way through our food or through supplementation, but the other 3 we've sort of got to forage and get in. So what happens when we get a whole bolus of sugar into our bloodstream? What happens is the glucose goes way up above where it should be at 5 grams %, goes way up, and then about 2 hours later comes down again, but doesn't just come down to there, goes down, almost naught, and there it says, whoa, crisis mode, we're hungry, I need some more sugar, and then you take more sugar in the form of a little piece of bread or a little bit of carbohydrate of some description, and bang, up it goes, happy. Right up there, insulin kicks in, down again it comes, almost at the bottom, and we're hungry again, and we take some more glucose. And so with a high carb, low fat diet, this is what we do. We bounce up and down, and we're permanently hungry. It goes up, and then we get this dip, and in the dip we want to eat, and then we go up again, and then in the dip we want to eat. And so we forage all day long on a high carb, low fat diet. What do proteins do when they enter the body? As soon as you ingest a protein, it gives you a much slower rise, gentle rise, never above the 5, little bit above the 5, just enough, and then it dips down slightly, and about 8 to 12 hours later you're hungry again, and you have a meal again. So not too bad. What happens when you ingest fats, saturated fats? Almost a straight line. What a pleasure. Doesn't bounce up, doesn't bounce down, doesn't give you the spike, and doesn't give you the dip. So there's no roller coaster happening there. Right. So with that in mind, bouncing up and down from euphoria down to absolutely nothing, and having to have a crisis and get some more, and dips and ups and dips and roller coaster riding, to a much gentler protein and to a much gentler saturated fat. The obvious thing to do with that in mind, if you were just looking at it, is to say, this bouncing up and down is probably not the right way to go. I mean, it's just like obvious. How can you be doing that, you know? So this should actually be turned around. It should be a high fat protein diet with a low carb. And that's where low carb, high fat diets come from, is that we're trying to prevent this roller coaster and have a more gentle approach to how we ingest food. For me to talk about glucose, how glucose gets handled in the body, or carbohydrates get handled in the body, we need to talk a little bit about insulin. So I'm sure everybody knows a little bit about insulin, or a lot about insulin, so bear with me with this if it's too basic. Is that when you have a bolus of glucose that enters into your bloodstream, Your body sends a message to your pancreas to produce insulin. Now, what does insulin do? Insulin has the key, holds the key to the cell. So the glucose cannot enter into the cell without insulin unlocking the cell and having it accepted. So insulin holds the key to the cell. So insulin opens up all the cells, bang, 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 we fill them all with glucose, and it closes up the cells again and locks them again. Job done. Not really. Job not really done yet. First half of job done. In other words, all the cells are satisfied. They've all got glucose. What now happens is there's an excess. There's too much glucose floating around. All the cells are full, but there's excess glucose. Now, the insulin has another job, and this is an important job, and this is where we need to focus, is that it stores that excess glucose. It stores it somewhere, because that's what the body does. It's there for self-preservation. There may not be glucose tomorrow, so we need to store what we've got extra today so that we can use them tomorrow. So what does it do? It stores it in 3 places. Firstly, in the muscle. It stores it in the muscle, which is a good thing, because then it is available, early thing, blah, blah, blah. You can get to it quite easily. Secondly, it stores it in the liver in the form of fat. So it stores some of it in the form of fat in the liver. Once the muscles are full and the fat and the liver is full, and there's still some more excess and there's still some more glucose lying around, what it does, it takes that glucose and stores it peripherally, on the bum and on the belly, subcutaneously, bum, belly, and viscerally. So that's what it does. That's its job. It does its job very efficiently, and it's a very, very, very good system for self-preservation. But if you bombard your body on a daily basis, year in and year out, with too many sugars, this system starts working against you. And you never ever clean out the pantry. You never clean out the fridge. You never clean out the deep freeze. So we can almost say the muscles are your fridge. We've got excess, it goes into the fridge. If the fridge is full, we say, okay, there's still a little bit left over. We put it in the pantry for the next couple of days. If there's still excess, we go and put it into the deep freeze. So we've got our muscles, which is our fridge, the liver, which is our pantry, and the peripheral fat and the visceral fat, the bum and the belly fat. That basically is our deep freeze. So if we keep filling these things, what do? The fridge is a finite amount, the pantry is a finite amount. The one thing that's infinite in all of this is the subcutaneous space and the visceral space. So all we do is we just get more and more deep freezers. Eventually we've got a massive amount of deep freezers all full. And if we have that situation year in and year out, we start having trouble, because your body wasn't designed to do that. So what we need to do is we need to clean out those systems. We need to do it on a more cyclic basis. So first thing to do before we clean out is we need to put less in. And the way we put less in is to not have a high carb, low fat based diet, but to do it the other way around. Minimize the carbs and increase the saturated fats and proteins. And that's where low carb, high fat diets come from, because we need to bombard the body less, and we need to get less of the roller coaster and more of the gentle rise and gentle fall, gentle rise, gentle fall. That's the way to do it. So the basis of everything is get less carbs in, more fats and more proteins. So see you in the next video, where we will definitely dismantle this low carb high fat diet. It's a nice little buzzword. Low carb high fat diet's very, very simple. I'm going to give you exactly what is a carbohydrate, exactly what is a protein, exactly what is a fat, and we will give you a nice little acronym to remember it by. And what a pleasure. We can start putting less of the bad stuff in, because then we need to treat less of the consequences of this bad stuff that we keep bombarding our body with. So exciting times ahead. Low carb, high fat diet We will explain it in detail in the next video. See you there.